Welcome back to our special forum looking at how the over-sexualisation of children, sexting and early access to porn is affecting our young people. This is an issue that affects and terrifies so many parents. Are we raising a whole new generation of kids and adults who are going to be addicted to porn?
Well, I think it is a new reality. We've never before had never-ending supply of free online pornography, and it's not just images of sex. It's actually what pornography conveys about things like men, women, power, aggression, humiliation, control, pleasure. So, yes, I think we're kind of conducting a social experiment on a whole generation of young people.
You became addicted to porn when you were 10. What does that mean? What does it mean to be addicted to porn?
It's the loss of control around being able to stop the usage, basically. So, for me, when I was about 10, I discovered porn at a friend's house when I had a play date. And for me, it really opened up a window into an adult world that I found very enticing. It was actually displayed quite openly within the house, and it was acknowledged, and there were no limitations around accessing it. The porn that I saw at that stage was just in magazine format, Playboy, Penthouse titles that we're all familiar with, and very softcore in their nature. The addiction really didn't start till much later on, until I found porn on the internet. So porn became a place to escape feelings of depression, feelings of isolation, loneliness, but the very means to escape that only reinforced the sense of self-loathing, depression and isolation.
Are we raising a generation of kids, of boys in particular, who are learning how to have sex purely from pornography? Maree, would you like to?
We know from a whole range of studies that porn is shaping particularly young men. Young men are much more likely to be active and enthusiastic consumers of pornography. So we know from studies around the world that porn is shaping young men's sexual understandings, expectations and experiences. My own interviews with young people, young men have repeatedly talked about wanting to engage in things they've seen in porn, and young women speak often about being pressured or coerced to engage in things that often their partners have seen in porn.
But what effect is that having? I mean, I've read that porn is rougher, tougher, more aggressive. Is that how boys think you make love these days?
Yes, and particular sexual practices, so ejaculating on faces and bodies. And a study found that there's a normalisation of coercive heterosexual anal sex amongst 16 to 18-year-olds, where the young men and the young women said they expected young men to pressure or coerce a reluctant female partner to engage in anal sex, because they'd seen it in porn, and they expected it to be painful for the young women, but pleasurable for the male, which was apparently insufficient deterrent. So here we've got a problem, I think. I think pornography is deeply problematic for young men as well as for young women. They feel a sense of, not being able to fumble, needing to know what to do, being able to perform the script. But it's really problematic for mutual respect, for mutual pleasure and for consent.
Well, where do they learn that good sex is really enjoyable? I mean, good sex is lovely. It's a wonderful feeling.
And I think
there doesn't seem to be any good sex anymore.
This is a critical point.
It's actually it's something called social learning theory that we know about in psychology, that you actually learn by observing. It's all the theories we learn about aggressive media, violent media, and pornography. Children are learning and teens are learning scripts that they perform.
I know a lot of gay people have found comfort in pornography because it shows people doing things that they never get from their own social circle, so they don't feel weird and strange anymore. Is there a role that pornography can play that is positive and good?
I'm going to go out there and say we cannot have ethical porn. I don't believe there can be such a thing as ethical porn. If we lived in a bubble and porn was detached from, and sex was detached from psychology and from biology, but we are not just biological creatures that perform. We are psychological, we are emotional, and we are social. And sex is a social interaction, there's connection, there's emotion involved. And if porn is created, as soon as we sit and watch somebody else engaged in sexual acts, I don't think there is a way we could stop people from objectifying somebody else.
Well, kids are being bombarded by a
Yes.
whole bunch of different messages, not just pornography that we see online and in magazines. But Melinda, do you think we are seeing all sorts of terrible messages sent to our kids via celebrities on red carpets and in music videos?
Well, it's true that our children are growing up in a pornified landscape. Everywhere they look, they see hypersexualised images, hypersexualised messages, which gives them very limited understandings of themselves, their bodies, relationships and sex. Our girls absorb a message that they need to be on display, they need to exhibit themselves, that they need to draw attention purely for whether they're thin, hot and sexy, and if they're not, you know, heaven help them. Our boys are learning a sense of entitlement. They're learning that girls exist for their gratification and pleasure, that women and girls are essentially sexual playthings. So, yes, this is reinforced at every level: toys, games, music videos, marketing, advertising, clothing, right through to pornography. It's pornland. Our kids are growing up in pornland.
I'd love to know what I then say to either my daughters who might stumble across it or friends who've got kids who've stumbled across, oh my goodness, what is this?
It depends on the age. So I say things like start as early as 2. So I don't mean talk about porn at 2 years old. So it's giving correct anatomical terms to your body parts. That by the time they get to about 10 years old, if you've never spoken about body parts, it becomes a bit more awkward and a bit more difficult. So you can start to talk about images that make them feel funny in their tummies, things that they feel like children shouldn't access or make them feel uncomfortable or prickly or a bit afraid. Really tell them that no matter what they see, they are going to come across images. Children get it. They get that mum will be open if I come to her, or dad will be open if I see something that makes me uncomfortable.
The Danish sexologist reckons that porn should be shown in school to teach students to become critical and conscientious consumers of it. What are your thoughts on that?
Look,
you don't like it?
I don't think that we need to be showing young people porn in order to support them to critique it. We've developed a whole range of education materials. Well, I don't think that we need to show images of beheadings or torture or, you know, any other kind of disturbing content in order to help young people understand that those things aren't constructive. I think there are other ways of doing it.
If you could break it down, though.
Look, I think there are a whole range of ways of doing it. Some of our resources include interviews with people from working within the pornography industry and interviews with young people to help them explore issues of consent, respect, pleasure. And I think we need to really focus on that, that sexual interest and curiosity is normal and healthy and fantastic. And
Hugh, you were addicted to porn.
Yeah.
First of all, what do you think of the Danish suggestion that porn should be a subject at school?
So it needs to be understood, not necessarily studied.
We need to also be careful that we don't say peer pressure as in all young people are actively looking at porn and think it's okay. There are so many boys trying to be young men of integrity. There are so many of them that they struggle with the porn issue, but they're not openly going, hey, let me watch as much porn as I can. They're actually struggling with pushing away some of the pressure.
The boys that don't have a problem have had someone to talk to about it, someone who they respect, who can actually help them interpret what they're seeing and talk to them about the potential harm that could take place.
My little brother, who's just turned 16 early this year, when he first got his first smartphone and whatnot, it wasn't so much a sit down, but just we're driving home together. And I was like, Campbell, there's going to be these sort of things on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter that you're going to see, and it's going to be lewd images. If you don't want to see it, just hit hide. I don't want to see any more of this sort of thing. My approach to relationships has been coming more from my parents and how they've had a model relationship with which I've been very fortunate to have.
We keep hearing, Martha, from all the experts on how parents should deal with pornography when it comes to the kids. As a former kid, how do you think we should deal with it? Yeah, that's right. How do you think parents should approach things like this?
I think it's important to keep those conversations open and shame-free, and a lot like how Sebastian was talking to his brother, not coming from a place of being patronising and being like, don't watch it and you have to hide it, but saying it's going to be there, it's all about your response. Young people especially are getting sucked into this vortex of what is real, and bodies don't look like that in real life. Bodies don't look like that having sex. It's about teaching our young people about what is realistic and what can be expected and what dynamic, enthusiastic consent is.
It is time to have a conversation, that's for sure. Thank you to our panel who provided some really thoughtful